You have to be able to move in space. You have to be able to pick up heavy things, put it overhead, carry your groceries. This becomes a non-negotiable. Very basic things.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.
So our buddy Tommy D'Addario's here. We always love when Tommy visits us because, well, you always leave the room and make us feel a little better about ourselves because you're such a positive force. You're all about health, wellness, and just nice. And we're still trying to find some fault in you, and we're going to find it, Tommy. Now, Tommy brought his friend Dr. Gabrielle Lyon in with him today. She has a new book called Forever Strong. It's out now. We're going to talk about that. But before you came in here, Gabrielle, Tommy said, "Oh, wait till you meet her. She's such a badass."
I did.
That's a good way to describe it.
I really appreciate that.
Well, I don't know. It could be positive. What, Tommy, in your description of Gabrielle, what makes her such a badass?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? First of all, in a world that everyone thinks they're a fitness guru on social media, especially, who offers advice, which in my opinion is often very wrong, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon is the real deal. You're going to hear from her. She is the best of the best. She is a trained professional. She truly is changing lives across the world. And the advice she has to give and that tool she gives you to change your own life is incredible. And I just love that you are putting your knowledge into the universe that really, really, really helps people. And not only is she doing that, but she's a badass mom. She's working out. You got to look at her Instagram. She posts these videos of her in the gym with her kids like hanging off of her as she's doing these deep squats and all the things in the gym. I mean, this woman cannot be cooler. I'm so excited to bring her here today.
Oh my gosh, doing squats with your kids hanging off. It's like goat yoga in a way.
Yeah. So different. We have very high standards in our family.
Gabrielle, what is your background?
Yeah, I'm a physician, and I trained I have a 17-year education, which is way too long. I trained professionally in nutritional sciences for 7 years. I am board certified in family medicine, and I did a fellowship at Washington University in both obesity medicine, nutritional sciences, and geriatrics.
Well, okay, so we're going to talk about a new way of looking, disrupting everything we know about and what we've been told about fitness and diet, things like that, with Gabrielle here. So from a personal point of view, my mom and dad passed away after I watched them sort of dying on the vine for a long time because of choices they did not make earlier in their lives. We have people of all different ages listening to our show, and it's never too late, and definitely never too early to get started in doing the real deal for our bodies. So what is your overall theme about what we should be doing?
Well, I love that you bring up your parents, and really ultimately for the last 50 years we've been focused on things like obesity, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, as if they're out there, as if these are diseases of fat. But the reality is these are actually issues with skeletal muscle first. Obesity, diabetes, Alzheimer's, the way that we age are directly related at its root cause, skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle is actually an organ, and it is the organ of longevity. If we start there, then we can protect ourselves and change the trajectory of aging.
But my skeletal muscle is always killing me.
There is
that.
We
got to work on that because these diseases that people think are obesity related begin in skeletal muscle decades before we see body fat, decades before we see issues with blood sugar, triglycerides, cholesterol. These are issues of skeletal muscle. That is the key to health and longevity.
Wow. So yeah, I was kind of blown away when several of my friends who were in the business said, you could be controlling weight and the way you look by working out your muscles more. And I thought it's about running in circles for 15 miles a day. They said, well, no, maybe cardiovascular stuff is good too. But the more you work out your muscles, the more you can control your body in other ways. Explain the correlation there.
Yeah. So skeletal muscle, often we think about skeletal muscle just as looking good naked and, being jacked and tan, wearing the skinny tank tops. This is the traditional thinking about skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is so much more than that. It is, number one, your metabolic sink. Everything that we eat, the carbohydrates that we're eating. Skeletal muscle, it's the place for glucose disposal. It's like a suitcase. And if that suitcase gets full, then everything spills back into the bloodstream. It's like It should look like a fillet, but it ends up looking like a marbled steak. And that is unhealthy skeletal muscle.
Well, I love a good Kobe steak. I don't know what the problem is with that. If someone else is buying.
Yeah.
But
So when we think about skeletal muscle, it's number one, this metabolic sink. Number two, it's your body armor. When you think about if you were to get sick, skeletal muscle, this is where your body pulls from nutrients. This is what you need. Also, it interfaces with your immune system. Everybody thinks about inflammation and immunity. When you contract skeletal muscle, it releases these little molecules called myokines. Myokines spread throughout the body. They affect neurogenesis. They make you smarter. They protect brain. They protect bone. It improves immune system. It dampens inflammation. It's incredible. But guess what? The only way you're going to leverage that is if you exercise.
Okay, so I have a question about that. I get migraines, and so my exercise is very limited because a lot of things trigger headaches, upper body, and in my back. So what does someone do that really is very limited and can't exercise as much as they'd like to?
This is a great question. Number one, we'd want to really solve the issue of the migraine. And maybe it's postural, maybe it's, whatever is going in your upper body. But there's an easy way to do that. And it could be, you could use machines. You could use body weights. Really focusing on squeezing the muscle will be enough to maintain it. Doesn't take as much as we think.
So
well, see, that's the thing. I would rather spend a day at the gym with the machines, with low impact, this and that, and without breaking too much of a sweat, than like running around like a crazy man, on a treadmill for an hour and a half. See, we were always taught, as you know, that it's calories in, calories out. It's moving and breathing, and then muscle tone. But you're saying it's the opposite. It's you turn that upside down.
So I coined this term called muscle-centric medicine, and it came out of necessity. If we have a minute, I would love to tell you this story. I was doing my research in obesity medicine, and I was looking at brain function and body weight. During the days, I was seeing patients over the age of 65 in nursing homes, in the hospital, at end of life. There was one participant of this study that I worked on. I absolutely fell in love with her. We'll just call her Betty. Big brown eyes, great personality, a mom of 3. She had always done exactly what you are saying. She ate less. She exercised more. This is what we told her. Over the years, she'd done a million different fad diets. And in the process, she lost her muscle. I went to image her brain, and her brain looked like the beginning of an Alzheimer's brain. And I realized that she had done exactly the advice that we had given her. And I thought about the patients that I was seeing in the nursing home, and I realized that the one thing they all had in common wasn't a body weight problem. It wasn't that they were over fat. It was actually that they were under muscled. And it was the health of the skeletal muscle that was the missing message and question that we were asking. We've been asking the wrong question. We've been trying to fix the wrong problem. The problem isn't obesity and all the diseases that ride along with it. The problem is the health of skeletal muscle. Had we told her to increase her dietary protein, had we told her to do resistance training, we could have saved her life. We could have saved her metabolism, we could have saved her muscle, and we could have saved her brain. And that is the message that every listener needs to take away. It's about nutrition, dietary protein. It's the longest relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with food. And training, resistance training, not the cardiovascular activity.
But you're saying, would you agree that a nice combination of both is probably nice? Or you're saying just, we can eliminate all cardio altogether?
No,
'cause I'm all
it's
for
amazing. But but only 50% of Americans exercise.
Right.
24% actually meet the basic recommendations. 24% of Americans are meeting the basic recommendations. If they are going to do one thing, if we can move the needle on one thing from an aging perspective for your parents, when your parents were going through the aging process, resistance exercise is non-negotiable. Skeletal muscle is an organ system. You have to protect it at all costs. And the only 2 ways to do that is dietary protein and resistance training. Yes, cardiovascular activity is incredible for the heart and the mitochondria. But we have to protect skeletal muscle because that tissue changes as we age.
Okay, so give, let's say someone who has not been exercising, someone who has not been doing training, like the very beginning steps. The number of moments per day or per week we should be doing resistance training. And what's a good resource to go to teach us how to get started?
Well, I would say my book, because I did an incredible exercise live. I could never be a fitness influencer because I did 100 exercise videos showing people exactly how to do body weight training, band training, and even light weights. Wherever anybody is, the greatest way to start would be to move their body. And I'm talking about figuring out how many squats someone can do, how many push-ups someone can do, how many sit-ups, very basic, safe physical movements. You could do that 3 times a week. Could walk for 30 minutes. It doesn't take a lot to begin to stimulate this tissue. And of course, after that, we want to advance. To resistance bands. Again, these things are very safe. Resistance bands. And then ultimately, understanding that doing weights really matters. And here's why. One of the major challenges with people as they get older is they become a fall risk. You have to be able to move in space. You have to be able to pick up heavy things, put it overhead, carry your groceries. This becomes a non-negotiable. Very basic things like picking up 2 very light dumbbells and carrying it, just walking around with it, pushing it overhead, basic stuff.
You know, it's funny. Scary is a great example. We had my trainer in several weeks ago, and we're like, Scary, who's, I don't think you've seen a gym in quite some time. And that's okay.
It's been a while, yeah.
Okay, so we had him do some very, very, very simple beginning exercises, like squats and push-ups, things like that with Scary. And, it's interesting where Scary stood up at one point. He said, I just realized I don't have to buy weights. I have weight already on me. And I can actually do squats and things, and my own weight I already own can actually be helpful for me.
I'm intimidated by a gym with all these apparatuses and machinery and stuff like that, and I've come to learn that maybe all you need is your own body weight, as you're saying, resistance to get started. And I think, and obviously that's free for everybody, right?
Yeah, it is. And also you bring up a really good point. People are very uncomfortable. It's not natural for people that haven't been exercising to go into the gym. It can be very intimidating. But I will challenge you and say anything worthwhile is you have to push through that initial discomfort. It's never going to get easier. You will always be maybe a little intimidated until you step into the arena. But everything in life that is worth anything requires that push.
There you go. Gandhi, you had a question for Gabrielle?
I have so many. So first, if you've already done damage to your body, is it possible to start reversing it with what you're talking about?
100%.
Okay.
This idea of thinking
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. When you think about the health of skeletal muscle, and let's say a skeletal muscle looks like a marbled steak, you can actually change that tissue. And you get impact immediately. So there's this idea, I'm sure that you've heard, insulin resistance. Everybody talks about insulin resistance. Insulin for you guys is a peptide hormone released from the pancreas. And you require it to move glucose out of the bloodstream into your muscle tissue, into your cells. When you exercise, you don't actually require insulin. So you're leveraging your body's own ability to use glucose and also use the energy within the muscle. So if you haven't worked out and you have unhealthy skeletal muscle, the best time to start is now, and it is reversible, and it is never too late. Even if you're in your 80s, it's never too late to gain strength and improve muscle.
And how important do you feel the 10,000 steps a day are for people?
It's a great baseline. It's a great baseline.
But you need
it's
more.
Movement that we should do. And, we've kind of implemented that because we've become largely domesticated. We have escalators and we have elevators.
Ubers.
And
we have Ubers.
Sitting all day.
Yeah.
You could.
As we sit here in our chairs that we've been sitting
All
here for
day.
5 hours.
What is so fascinating is that we could live a life where we never exercise, a day in our life, and still survive. But the reality is, if that is the case, then we have to get the other side of the coin correct, and that's nutrition. Because that is something that 100% of people do, is eat. And that's the other side to this story is nutrition. And there's so much conflicting information out there, especially in the aging and longevity research. But there are decades of information that support how important dietary protein is for muscle health and wellness. And that is a critical conversation because the current recommendations that, by the way, have not been updated since 1968.
That little chart looks like it. That thing
So
looks
the
old.
current nutrition recommendation for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram. And if you guys don't want to do math in your head, it's
We don't.
I don't either. I don't either. So I came prepared and
So
pre-calculated
do it for us.
this out
Thank
for
God
you.
you're here with a calculator. Go.
Yeah. So to translate that, that's 0.37 grams per pound. So if I weigh 115 pounds, multiply that out, my current baseline recommendation is 45 grams of dietary protein.
Wow.
That is abysmal. That is the minimum to prevent deficiency. Now, on the same hand, if you were thinking about maybe you get sick, and the baseline recommendation for vitamin C is 60 milligrams. If you get sick, do you take more vitamin C?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a heck yeah.
Yeah.
You take double, triple, right?
Yeah.
Think about the health of skeletal muscle. I just told you it interfaces with the immune system, that it's your body armor, that it's your metabolic sink. But when you aren't feeling well or you think about optimization, you might take more vitamin C. You don't think about that conversation as it relates to protein. Nothing could be further from the truth. The evidence supports double the RDA. So that is 0.7 to close to 1 gram per pound ideal body weight
Per day.
per day to protect your body, to protect this organ of longevity. So if the listener does nothing else, they're going to increase their dietary protein, and that first meal of the day matters. And that is going to be between 30 and 50 grams of dietary protein.
Whoa.
And I think a big misconception, I have a lot of female friends and they say I don't want to bulk up and I'm afraid of eating too much protein and will that start making me bulky and less slim? And that's such a misconception to your point, right? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, the biggest pushback, and I see patients in clinic still 2 days a week, and the biggest misconception women have is that they're going to get bulky. That number one, there's a few things. They're going to get bulky. Protein is bad for the kidneys, bad for the bone, or going to cause heart disease. None of those things are true. In fact, the exact opposite is true. When you increase dietary protein is very difficult to store as fat. In fact, we see that when you increase dietary protein, people lose weight. It actually augments their willpower because they're not hungry. Wow. It is nearly impossible to overeat dietary protein. And that first meal of the day, so the standard American diet is they'll have a small protein breakfast, maybe 12 grams, maybe a donut, but nobody in here eats donuts. So
Name 7 at a time.
We don't need to talk about that right now.
and then that middle meal might be a sandwich, and then the dinner meal is going to be a steak dinner or something, a high-end dietary protein. What we need to do is we need to shift that. And that first meal of the day should be robust in protein. And that could be...
Talk about it. What
Yeah,
exactly would be on my plate in the morning? If you came in this morning and said, we need breakfast, Gabrielle, what would we have on our plate?
Right.
I would give you a couple things. Number one, to make it super easy, because everyone here is really busy, I would give you a protein shake.
That's what I do.
Something super. And look at Tommy. Nobody could look better than Tommy
Well, I don't know
ever.
about that, but
right? We're still looking for something wrong, but
We'll find it.
I know. Easy, a whey protein shake. And if you can't tolerate whey, then a rice pea blend. There's a million different shakes. Protein shake in the morning, get a minimum of 30 grams of dietary protein. If you're a guy and you need more, 2 scoops of a protein powder, you will begin to correct your metabolism immediately. You will feel less hungry. I have so many patients that they have a big carbohydrate breakfast. They're trying to napitate under the desk in 90 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
Another thing, you could have a couple eggs, some Greek yogurt, turkey bacon, even a lean beef patty. The idea of breakfast cereal, this is a construct. This isn't something normal or natural. It's something that industry created, this idea of breakfast. It's the worst thing that someone could do is just have a high carbohydrate breakfast. You're going to be chasing blood sugar and energy all day long. So number one, that's what you're going to do for breakfast. Deal? Everybody here.
Sure.
Okay.
All you have to do, increase dietary protein at that first meal, and here's why. So your muscle is primed. Skeletal muscle is a nutrient-sensing organ. It senses the quality of the diet. When you have a high-protein meal, it triggers muscle protein synthesis, which is a big fancy word for triggering this cascade of events that ultimately lead to muscle health over time. And it protects you against sarcopenia. It protects you against what we see when those individuals are aging and getting skinnier and more frail. It's the most effective thing that you could do. And then I don't really care so much about the middle meal, but that last meal should be a repeat of high dietary protein before, and you can have carbohydrates and a little bit of fat before you are going into an overnight fast.
Is one type of protein better than another, like plant versus animal versus a powder?
Absolutely. When we talk about protein, we talk about protein quality. And these are hard, fast biological numbers. There is so much emotion involved in the macronutrient protein, which is surprising because, you know, I've been studying this for 20 years. And I would say before social media, it wasn't nearly as heated. This idea of animal versus plants. The reality is we talk about protein as if it's one thing. But protein is actually 20 different amino acids, 9 of which are essential, meaning we have to get it from the diet. And each of those individual amino acids, those 9 essential, all have diverse biological roles. They're not interchangeable. We need them to do very specific things. Animal-based proteins provide us with the exact ratio of those individual amino acids. They do things like they're precursors for neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin. They're precursors for these amino acids that help protect gut, that create mucin for gut lining, all of the things that we hear about. So when we eat animal-based proteins, which are beef, chicken, eggs, dairy, these provide us with the exact amino acid ratios necessary to support our muscle tissue.
Wow. And we hear from so many people say, stop eating animal protein. I'm saying, what I'm hearing you say, Gabrielle, is start every day eating like a cat. Eat a cat. A kitty cat.
I want to mention, I want to say something. The worst piece of advice someone could give an aging person is to reduce high quality protein, because it's not just the protein. It also has iron, zinc, selenium, bioavailable nutrients. And while you can get proteins from plants, if you were to equate, again, it's these amino acids. If you were to say quinoa is a good source of protein, you would need 6 cups of quinoa to equal 1 small chicken breast.
Oh, wow.
But do you
starting the day with some lean protein and some Brazil nuts, whatever, I mean, is a really good way to get the day going.
It's a great place to start. Plant-based proteins, you could do it with a plant-based protein, but again, you would need more plant-based proteins. And it's also about the food matrix. There's tons and tons of women and young children that are that are low in iron and zinc, selenium. These are micronutrients that are necessary. So again, we focus on high quality protein, and then the rest of health falls into place.
I'm sorry, Gandhi, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go right ahead.
Not a problem. But back to the animal-based protein, are you saying that the proteins in that offset some of the stuff that we keep hearing we should be worried about, like the hormones and antibiotics that are put into the meats?
So,
and I'm not a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So you know.
And I actually cover this in the book. Once something goes to market, it can't have hormones in it. Mm-hmm. It can't. So the tissue that you're eating doesn't have hormones in it, and they have a very tight regulation.
Interesting. Okay.
And again, it's a myth. This idea that that meat is bad for you is a myth. It's a myth.
Oh, good. I love you more than ever now.
People have to understand that what we're hearing in the media is really dependent on who controls the narrative and who controls the marketing budget. The commodities like beef and pork and milk and dairy, these things they come from small farmers. Their collective marketing budget is $750 million for all of the commodities.
I love that you're telling us this. That's very important, because the farmer, of course, is a major part of our listener diet every day, listening across America, and we want to support them. And
I agree.
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing is we need a chef in the morning. Is what I'm hearing.
This is what I'm hearing.
Elvis.
Let's do it.
And I will say something else. I'll say something else for the farmers and the people across the country is that the commodities pool their resources together, and they can't say anything disparaging against processed foods. They can't say real beef is better for you than fake meat. The marketing budget for one processed food company, for PepsiCo, is almost $2 billion. They can say disparaging things against beef, saying beef is killing the planet or it's better to drink almond juice than it is to drink real milk. But then the small farmers and the commodities can't say anything disparaging. So the narrative that we're hearing is completely skewed.
I get that, and not a surprise at all. By the way, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, of course, her book is Forever Strong. It's out now, and this book has been the one that Tommy was talking about before he brought you to us. And I see here, Tommy, you have it open to a page in your reading. Obviously, we're boring you, and you're reading the book instead, or you have something you want to bring up as a point. What are you looking at?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for listeners is how accessible Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's points are, and this book is, because it literally gives you a meal program. So if you're like, I don't know where to begin, you have a meal program you can reference and easily make the foods. To your point, it's nothing that comes in a package. It's not processed. It's whole food, real ingredients. And I think it's super helpful to have a guide because people don't know where to begin. And when you break it down like this, you have a green goddess salad, you have a shrimp stir fry. I mean, delicious, delicious recipes. You think, well, wait a minute, this isn't as difficult as I maybe thought it would be to jumpstart my own health.
It's not. And I have a weight loss track in there. I have a longevity track. I have a muscle growth track. I have exercise plans. This book is written for anybody. It is, the goal of it was to be accessible and to be evidence-based. This is an evidence-based book.
Okay, so I want to go study this book a little more because a lot of the stuff you said when it came down to the science of why it works, we get lost a little bit. I mean, because to be frank, we're not educated in these fields as you've been studying for dozens of years, right? But to look at it in black and white makes all the sense in the world. So the book is Forever Strong by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who Tommy says is a total badass, and now we get it, which is a very positive, very nice positive. And thank you for coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege, and the message and the mission is so important because we can shift the conversation from what we have to lose to what we have to gain, and that is very powerful.
Why would I say anything after that? And that's a wrap right there. I love it. That's your line. Stick with that line. That's great. Look, you're sitting here telling me everything my trainer has been trying to tell me for so long. And okay, now I got to listen to him. Damn it.
Thank you
Tommy,
so much, Elvis. It's
no, thank you.
This mission is just, it's so imperative to change the conversation because we can protect a lot of people by doing this. And once they understand it's all about muscle and it's not about the aesthetics, then being able to come on a platform like this to really move the needle for people is incredible. Thanks, Tommy.
Oh, anytime.
Thank you, Tommy.
Anytime. I like bringing good people together.
Well, so are you insinuating we're good people?
Well, maybe not you. It's mainly about me.
Well, thanks, Tommy.
You don't know, Tommy.
If only you knew.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.